attorney Gregory Dell. I'm here with attorney Rachel Alters, and we're going to discuss long-term disability claims for airline pilots. This is something that may seem like, hey, if I'm a pilot and I file for disability, that you're going to get approved. However, obviously, from the hundreds of claims that we've handled representing pilots, it's not exactly that easy to get a claim approved, and obviously, there's been many denials. Now, Rachel, what is your understanding of the definition of disability for most of these policies that are sold to pilots?
I mean, most of the policies are, whether you can perform the substantial material duties of your occupation. So, it's going to depend on if it's a group policy, then it's going to be as your occupation is defined in the national economy. And if it's a private policy, it's going to be your own occupation as it's defined by your employer. So it depends on where the policy is coming from.
Right. And usually we'll see with pilots that it's usually unable to perform substantial material duties of your occupation, but it may not be that situation for the duration of the policy. It could be that it's only that definition of disability for 24 months, and then it switches to any gainful occupation for which you have experience, education, and training. And often you see a lot of claim denials that change a definition because now they take, pilots are highly educated and they say, well, we think you could do some type of other job based upon your education.
Sure.
So, Rachel, specifically when dealing with pilots, we mentioned earlier, it would seem you would think it's obvious, but the disability carriers deny these claims, and often a lot of these pilot policies have what's called an objective proof of evidence standard. What is that in a disability policy?
In a disability policy, if they have that standard, what it is they are requiring that you provide proof, whether it's if we have a pilot who has, let's say, a back issue where he has a herniated disc and can't sit for long periods, therefore is unable to fly because flying requires sitting for extended periods of time. So if the policy requires objective proof of the disability, that would mean something along the lines of an MRI, a CT scan that's going to prove that he does have a herniated disc or a bulging disc or something that's impairing him. Also, it's going to mean that the doctors have to be documenting and putting objective proof into their records, not just complaints of the pilot's subjective complaints of his pain, but there has to be proof in the medical records, including testing like MRIs and CTs and the doctor's notes, and more proof of the actual disability. You can't just go by the pilot saying, hey, I'm in pain, I can't work. That wouldn't work and wouldn't get him approved.
One of the unique things for pilots is that they often have to have this FAA medical clearance in order to fly. And so, if you don't get your medical clearance from the FAA authorized doctor, then usually that's going to be very strong evidence that you're not able to fly. But what about the situations where there is the FAA physicals passed and the claimant is still saying, look, I don't feel that I can fly and my doctors are recommending that I do not fly? How do you handle that situation?
Right. So we would have to work with the doctors and get them to, put into writing the reasons why they believe that the pilot is unable to fly. Because obviously, if he is a danger to the passengers and he's not able to be 100% while he's up in the air, it's a very precarious situation. You don't want a pilot who, number one, is on pain medicine, who is not lucid from the pain medicine that they're taking, or he's not taking pain medicine, so he's in severe pain and not able to focus when he's in a situation up in the air that could be a life and death situation. So we would have to work with the physicians, possibly get him some more testing, maybe send him for some sort of independent medical evaluation, some sort of expert who will say that yes, he cannot do these things, he may not sit for extended periods of time. Also, we do not recommend that he does, even though the FAA has released him, it is my medical opinion that he's not capable of handling the material duties of his job.
So a lot of pilots who file claims have chronic medical conditions, chronic back pain, chronic neck pain, or been suffering with chronic fatigue or shoulder pain, a variety of orthopedic conditions or other autoimmune disorders that may have been bothering them. But they continue to fly through, with these conditions without any reduction in their flight schedule. And the disability carrier gets that and goes, look, I see you've been treating for a year. You didn't cut back your schedule at all. And now you're telling us you can't fly as of this date. How do you deal with that situation? What do you recommend a pilot does so that they could avoid that type of situation and avoid a claim denial?
Right, and I often tell them, unfortunately, their perseverance and determination to try and work as hard as they can through the pain often will hurt them with the insurance carriers, because when they see that, they say, well, he's been capable of flying for the last year. He hasn't cut his hours down, so what's changed? Because his condition seems to be the same as it was about a year ago. And often times what changes is that they can no longer handle the pain anymore. Their pain threshold is decreasing. They've been pushing themselves so much, and at this point they can't do it anymore. So I would advise them to, decrease their hours, to discuss with their physician, to document, the flight hours that they recommend they should be flying, and to make sure that the doctor is saying that the condition has progressed and the pain has gotten worse. So if you're not able to show those things, it is easy for the insurance carrier to deny.
Right, and it's actually an interesting dynamic for a pilot, because a pilot usually is doing an overnight of 1 or 2 nights when they go. So they don't so much have the luxury to say, oh, I'm going to work 2 or 3 hours a day and then I'd like to go home. So it's a very difficult proposition if someone says, well, doctor says, well, I'd like to see you cut back your hours. Well, you can't really cut back on a shift. Sure, you could fly once a week instead of 2 or 3 times a week that you're flying, and see how you do on one shift. But usually from what we see is, if you're required to be in the cockpit, for 8 hours a day, and traveling and then carrying your bags and back and forth to the hotel and in and out of the airplane, that a cutback of 1 day a week, which your airline may not even accommodate you, usually doesn't help a pilot in their specific situation. So it's not one of those jobs that lends itself towards an accommodation. The thing that's also a struggle that we know for many pilots is that the retirement programs and the pensions deal with years of service. And the longer you're there, the greater your pension's going to be. And a lot of pilots try to hang on because the more years they go, the greater they're going to get in their pension. So they battle through these conditions. And unfortunately, they might be treating with a doctor for a while for a chronic type medical issue. And then again, when they finally go to stop after years and years, the carrier says, well, we don't really think that, that you're unable to do it at this point. You should be able to continue to do it. So can't stress enough how important the preparation is with the doctor and the documentation of your medical condition. Now, if someone has an own occupation definition, a true own occupation definition of disability, and they can't fly planes anymore, do they have the option to engage in any other type of work?
Absolutely. So if the policy does have a true ONOC definition of disability, then it's, can you do the material substantial duties of your own occupation? If you could do other things, like if you wanted to be an instructor or teach or do other things that didn't involve actual flying, there are many policies that will pay you for that disability while you're working. So that is definitely an option, and it depends on the policy, of course.
Right, and of course the issue at that point is going to be is whether or not you're going to get a set-off, for
the income,
for the additional income that you're going to earn. So, the medical support's extremely important if you're a pilot. The definition of the occupation is going to be very consistent. It's not one of those types of things where there's a struggle to say, hey, what do you do as a pilot? It's going to be pretty clear. The biggest struggle is going to come if you have a change of definition where you don't have a true own occupation definition for more than 24 months, then you should expect to get some bumps in the road from the disability carrier. But what we suggest you do is take a look at our website, specifically look up your disability company. You'll learn a lot of information there. We have lots of videos, lots of articles, lots of helpful tips there about your disability company and how they handle your particular claim at all different stages. You can always call Rachel, contact myself, or any of our disability lawyers, and we'll provide you with a free review of your policy or a review of your denial letter if you're at that possible stage of your claim. And we appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and if you subscribe to our videos, it will help you in the future as we regularly put video updates which will help you with your claim in the future. Thank you for considering our law firm.